Thanks for joining us in the Identity and Privacy Deep Dive track. My name is Glen Sarvady. I'm at 154 Advisors, and I'm also on the steering committee for Fintech South. And I think we've got a perfect way to really launch into this section. Can't be kind of more central to the topic: identity verification and privacy in the age of digital acceleration. And we have Chris Luttrell from IDology. Here she is coming onto the screen now. Good morning, Chris. And it's nice to have a scoop, too. I'm going to take credit for us breaking news here as of this morning. Chris has just been named the Chief Executive Officer of IDology. She's been with the firm for 13 years, but as of this morning is the CEO. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's an exciting day for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure. And we'll talk a bit about that as well as IDology in general, and let you explain a little bit more about the company. But just to touch on it for people who may not be familiar, IDology is an Atlanta-based company. It's in the shadows of Truist Park, just up around the perimeter. Chris joined IDology in 2007 as their first product manager and has been there forever for a great level of growth and has been very instrumental in that growth, growing their customer base from a handful to over thousands of customers now, and an annual cumulative annual growth rate, a CAGR of 51% over that time as well. She's also been, I'll just focus, she's had several accolades, but most specifically from a local standpoint, she was named in 2019 by the Atlanta Business Chronicle as a woman who means business. So with that, Chris, again, thanks so much for taking the time. And let's start by, if you can just tell us a little bit more about IDology's role in identity verification, anti-fraud solutions, the company's heritage, and what you see as the keys that have brought them to the success so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here. So I appreciate it. And Glenn, thank you. That was a great introduction. You got the scoop, right? So great job on that. So yeah, as Glenn mentioned, we're located here in Atlanta, and just next to the park. I can't wait to get back to the ball field so we can start watching games in person. But IDology has grown so much over the years, and we've adapted so much over the years. We actually began as a company that did age verification, and we still actually do age verification, but that was our main focus in the early days. And since that time, we've evolved into a multi-layered platform that really does well with the orchestration of data and fraud prevention tools, working across many different industries in the fintech space. We work with a lot of great companies in the fintech area, financial services, healthcare, gaming. So just anywhere you need to verify where a consumer is not present and you want to verify and validate their identity, make sure they are who they claim to be. That's where IDology fits. And I think one of the biggest driving forces behind the success of the company is and has always been our agility and our willingness to adapt to market changes. We've always, kept our ear to the ground on what's happening with markets and with legislation to determine, do we fit that, or are there things that we need to do to evolve in order to meet those needs? And you can think about really how much identity has changed over the years. Just in the past 10 years, when I first started IDology 13 years ago, it was enough to match someone's name, their address, their social, and their date of birth. That was enough, right? But we all know that data breaches kind of really did a number on that. And now that's really not enough in order to verify that someone who is who they claim to be. Now, it's still enough from a compliance perspective, but from really validating and onboarding good consumers, you really now have to have those layers of authentication and verification in order to be able to make sure that that person is who they claim to be. So I think that the main driver to our success has been our willingness to evolve and adapt to any kind of changes that come over time.
That's a really good, I like that point that you make about there's one thing to meet the letter of the law from a compliance standpoint, and then there's the whole customer experience side of things. I mean, you want to make sure that the customer comes away with a good feeling. And the phrase that I think of a lot in terms of fintech in general is how important trust is to the value proposition. And I think you're touching on that right now. I mean, how do you think IDology, you've mentioned you've got a broader customer base, but fintechs and banks are pretty key in financial services providers. How do you think you facilitate that trust from a customer experience standpoint?
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, consumers, they're going to decide if they trust your company or not within the first few seconds on your site, on your sign-up forms. So, it's really important to make sure that you have a process, an onboarding process that's user-friendly. But it also explains how you're using the data that the consumer gives you, how you're protecting their data, what you're going to do with that. So for us, with our clients, what we do is we help them integrate a solution that doesn't seem too intrusive and provides a more friction-free way of validating identities. But trust is so incredibly important, Glenn.
And you mentioned the friction-free way. One of the things, everyone loves talking about artificial intelligence. It's kind of the buzzword, and everybody wants to automate everything. One of the things that I really like about your model is you've got all that stuff, obviously, but you also really focus. You talk about a consortium-based approach, and you actually do have dedicated, human fraud teams that actually look at this stuff. Which, to me, when you talk about multi-layered authentication, that's part of it. Yeah, to me, that's a lot of your secret sauce. Would you agree? Can you say a bit about how the AI side and the human side kind of interact?
Yeah, for sure. There's not the issue is that there's not a one size fits all solution that will handle everything, right? So you can't just use AI. You can't not use AI. You have to do really a combination of both AI and human intervention to help with making sure that you are validating the right people. So our fraud team, I think we have an incredible fraud team, and they are part of our secret sauce, I guess you could say. But as the machines learn and as the AI is working its way through the data, sometimes there are things that the machine doesn't catch because the fraudster shifted so quickly. And we know in fraud, fraudsters will shift on a dime. Like they will shift so quickly, and they spend a lot of time probing to figure out how to get into things. And then they can just decide, okay, I figured this out, I'm going to shift today. And at that point, the machine hasn't caught up. And so we have to make sure we're staying ahead of that and we're training the models properly. So really, you have to have a combination of the things. There's a place for both. And I don't think you can toss out the human element. You can never toss out the human element when dealing with fraud prevention in this industry.
Now, there's also a need to really do this all in real time, too. So how do you, obviously, machines can do things in real time. Humans, it's a little bit tricky when you're talking about a 5-6-second approval process. How do you square the circle on that one?
Well, that's where the AI comes into play, and where we spend a lot of time on the models, just making sure that we're validating the right consumers and that we are preventing the fraud. And we do that with a lot of feedback from our clients. We have feedback loops where our customers give us intelligence on how we performed on certain things. And we work so closely with our customers, great relationships with our customers, and we work so closely with them that they're willing to provide that feedback to us, so that it's because if they can help us be better, then we can help them onboard more legitimate consumers and also help them drive the revenue that they're needing to drive on their side. So like I said, you have to have both. You can't go one way or the other. There can be a convergence of the two where they both work very well together.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know obviously COVID's kind of thrown another wrench in the system, and fraud's always changing. There's a changing profile all the time, but COVID obviously changed the way we interact, changed the need for a lot of online interaction, and gave fraudsters new opportunities. And I know you've actually added some new features to your product set to take care of that. Can you talk again? That speaks to your agility, the fact that you did it so quickly. Can you say a bit about exactly what you've done in that space?
We did. And first I want to say, I think we have the most amazing product development and quality assurance teams, I think, in the entire country, if not the world. And I could just brag on them for hours. I'm a bit biased, but the improvements that we made this year, they were quick and they were innovative. And this just goes to show the collaboration that we have within the teams at IDology. Our fraud team started spotting some interesting trends, and our product managers started pouring through data and looking at some things that they saw interesting trends, and we came together as a group and saw certain areas that were sticking out And then the product team quickly reacted and took that and added some new features into the product. And so here we kind of did what we do best. We pivoted and we adapted very quickly and very rapidly, just to make sure that we could stop these types of things from happening, and make sure that we're taking care of our customers. Some of those trends that we saw related to emails, some related to mobile devices and verification, some related to the age of individuals, and some of the fraud we were seeing around elderly fraud. So just the pivot was very important. That's a funny word. I know you hear it a lot in Silicon Valley, but it really helped us in this situation.
And not to talk out of school, but we discussed this a bit yesterday. You were a victim of fraud related to COVID yourself, weren't you?
I was, actually, and this is one of the areas that I mentioned the elderly fraud, and that really makes me angry that our elderly population is being targeted by fraudsters. But another area that we've seen a huge spike in was unemployment fraud, and this is where they got me. We got a letter at the company that said, Chris has filed for unemployment, and you have the normal letter. You have the right to dispute.
It went right to the top. Wow.
Yeah, right. So, we got the letter at the company, and I called. The state of Georgia is just so overwhelmed right now with COVID and just everything that's going on. So I called a few times. The VP of Finance called a few times. We weren't able to ever get anyone, and I actually filed a fraud claim with the state. But then a couple of weeks later, we got the letter at the office stating that the claim had been approved, and that the unemployment was going to be mailed to an address in Detroit, Michigan. So it was kind of for me. In all of my years of working in identity, I've never actually had my identity compromised. So I've always been very empathetic to the cause, though. But boy, when it happens to you, it really makes you think even deeper and further about the situation. And so I'm getting mine worked out, but it has huge implications. If we had not caught that, if the team at IDology hadn't caught that, and I hadn't known about it, then I could be in trouble for not paying taxes on that, right? So
you mentioned that yesterday. That had never occurred to me. That in theory, somebody would be reporting that you received unemployment benefits. You wouldn't receive those because that W-2 or whatever that form is, 1099, whatever, goes to Detroit. So you wouldn't. So suddenly you got a tax issue.
You're right. You got it. So that's an area, and it's I'm just one example. This is happening a lot, and it's happening to all across the country. So that's something that we're really focused on as well. But it was good to see. I guess if it could happen to anybody, happening to me, that way I could see actually how it happened and what was occurring. That allows us to actually help our customers if they're experiencing unemployment fraud as well.
What a great example of eating your own dog food, not by intent, but by having that. And again, the sad part is it shows. I mean, these fraudsters are smart. They know that the states are backed up. Mm-hmm. Therefore, they know they've got a soft underbelly because people can't really check these things. And if they could just use that knowledge in a somewhat more productive fashion, it would be wonderful. But that's not going to happen.
Yeah. I feel the same way, Glenn.
What about the other half of this deep dive? Title of this track is privacy, and I'm just kind of curious. IDology obviously thinks a lot about that. The biggest place where that comes up, I think, at least in the States, you've got GDPR overseas, but in California, you've got the California Consumer Privacy Act, the CCPA, that you obviously have to deal with. I'm sure you've got tons of business in California. Can you talk a little bit about how you deal with privacy?
Yeah, of course. Well, I personally, I live by the golden rule, and that's really no exception when it comes to someone else's data as well. So for me, and also the team at IDology, it's just critically important that we protect consumer data. And as an industry, we have to protect consumer data. We have to make sure that we're adhering to strong security standards as it relates to encryption of data and data in transit and data at rest. And when it comes to the new regulations, IDology, we're perfectly equipped to handle the requests from consumers, but we also provide services to companies who need to comply with the data or comply with the law, excuse me. So for example, if you have consumers that are requesting to see their information for the CCPA, you probably need to be verifying that they are who they claim to be before you show them what you have on them, right? I mean, what a perfect way for someone to conduct an account takeover, right? Like, you could easily conduct an account takeover by pretending to be someone who wants to see what data you have on them from a CCPA compliance perspective. So, yeah, we're certainly, on guard constantly and making sure that we're doing our part to protect consumer data, but we're also there helping our customers comply with this law as well.
I should mention, we're happy to take questions. If anybody wants to put anything in the chat window, we can. We've got about a little bit more than 10 minutes left, and I've got more than enough that I can ask Chris about. But if anybody has specific questions, and we will be getting into a bit about her journey to the CEO position as well. You've talked a bit about multiple identity layers, which I think is pretty key. And I mean, it can sound like a buzzword. I think it's relatively straightforward if you think about it literally what it means. But can you touch on that a bit?
Yeah. And by the way, I strongly dislike buzzwords. I think our industry has gone through so many buzzwords in the past 10 years. I should start keeping a board of them. But
you pushed back on pivot already, so we got that one covered.
I know. Like, I can't believe I just said the word pivot.
You can shift the paradigm later if you like to.
Right. And orchestration as well. So, all right. Sorry, I digress, but we'll just keep moving. But yeah, so for the multiple layers of identity, again, we've been working in that mantra for quite a while now, for years, because we saw very early on that, as I mentioned before, just doing the matching on data attributes, the name, the address, the social, the DOB, it's never going to be enough anymore. And so when we saw that, that's when we started adding in additional layers of verification. And those layers can be anything from email verification, geolocation, it can be mobile device and phone verification, looking at consortium data, looking at any type of alert list that we have within the system, or looking at different aspects of the identity, because your identity is more than just name, address, social, DOB. There's a lot of information that can be gleaned from data that can tell us more about your identity as well. So just putting all of that together and then having really easy ways of escalating up to higher levels of authentication when need be, that's where we shine. And that's what we've been doing for a lot of years. So when the pandemic hit, we were perfectly positioned to help with our clients that were, or new clients that were working towards moving to the digital onboarding stage, because we've been doing it for so long. We didn't really have to change what we were doing.
That was kind of the next question I wanted to ask. I mean, obviously, one of the big impacts of COVID has been an acceleration of people moving to digital channels across the board, e-commerce and everything else. Again, you're perfectly positioned. That also means a heck of a lot more work to be done. And obviously, we also talked, you're working from a home office today. I mean, not only doing more work, but doing it in a new working model. How have you dealt with that from a sheer volume standpoint? I'm assuming your workload's gone up too, both in terms of the level of fraud as well as the number of requests for identification.
The workload has definitely gone up. We have been busier than I can ever remember since the pandemic started. And honestly, what a blessing. When a lot of folks were losing jobs, we were having to staff up, and I feel incredibly blessed by that. But we've handled it really well. We have continued down the path of just making sure we take great care of our customers and onboarding new customers, and just doing what we do best, and that's take care of folks. But yeah, the workload has been tremendous, and I'm really proud of the team, because for you guys on the call, Glen and I were talking earlier, but on March 13th, we made the announcement that we were shutting the office and going to remote. And that was it. Like, that was the last day in the office for most people. And so everyone just went straight to remote working, and we didn't skip a beat. And that really comes from the the flexibility and the resilience of the IDology team. They did a phenomenal job.
Slightly off topic, but that just occurred to me. I mean, it's one thing to move offline and work remotely when you've already established those relationships with your coworkers, as you've done over time. You've just mentioned you've had to staff up, so you're bringing on new people and onboarding them too. Any kind of little secrets around how you manage that?
Well, we're doing lots of training, and we're doing lots of video calls. We have video calls every day going on, and we've got some internal things that we do, internal chats and other small meetings that we have. So, I think the important part is just to keep the lines of communication open and make sure we're talking and just collaborating with one another on an ongoing basis.
We got one question that came in via Slido, and I think it's a good one related to CCPA, again, the Privacy Act in California specifically. It mentions that their company, one of their real keys is to make sure that they create a seamless user experience for customers. So how do you help your customers make it look like it's a single solution as opposed to a separate kind of off to the side process?
Yeah, so happy to talk to you about that as well. But for us, it's you're connecting to one API, and that API is a very simple connection with easy response codes to decipher coming back, and you get to control that process through our web portal that we have on our side. So we just try to make it easy. We want to, like, one of our key features is we want to be easy to do business with, and so that means that we want to make it easy for you to integrate, easy for you to work the tools in the system.
Now let me pivot a bit. Now, if I can use that word again, as we started off the conversation, as of this morning, as of I believe 9 a.m., at least according to the press release, and I'm sure it's not officially the time, but you are now the CEO of IDology. And I should mention, IDology was acquired by a company, a UK-based company, GBG, I believe, last year. So a couple of things. I just, both you mentioned before, you were hired as a product manager, the first product manager when the company was, I think you told me, about 10 people large. So can you talk a bit about your journey from that opening, introduction? You're already in this identity space from your prior experience, and then also the way that you interact with the corporate office in the UK.
Yeah, sure. So it has been quite a journey for the past 13 years. I did start out as the product manager, as you mentioned, and today's been a pretty exciting day. It's been something that we've been working for a while. So I told Glenn I had to turn my phone off because of my notifications just kept coming through. But honestly, it's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I've learned a lot along the way, and over time, as I gained more responsibility, I just continued to want to learn. I wanted to be a sponge and just take in all the information that I could take in. And if there was a job that needed to be done, I would volunteer to do it, right? And so by doing that, I think that our CEO, John Dansu, my predecessor, he would see that and then would give me more opportunity. It's gone by so fast, though. I can look back and it seems like just yesterday when I walked in on my first day. It doesn't seem like it's been 13 years because we've just moved so quickly over time. But we've had we've built an incredible business, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of it and to have the opportunities that were given to me. We were acquired by GBG last year, and I'm really excited about that and all the opportunities that come from that. GBG is a worldwide identity provider, and they have some really incredible data across the world. And I'm a data nerd. Prior to IDology, I worked for a company here in Atlanta called ChoicePoint for about 9 years. That's now LexisNexis, and I started my life in data, my career in data, and so I love data. And when I learned that GBG would be the one to acquire us, I just got so excited because I started thinking about all the things that I could do with that worldwide data in our platform and how cool that would be for all of our customers. I still get really excited about it. I'm talking with my hands. I'm excited.
Well, that's great. I mean, there's obviously opportunities to bring that data together and the data from other countries. But at the same time, it also seems to me to be a great match because you don't have to worry about educating somebody about the space. They know your space. They bought you specifically because you do have, a geographic coverage that, as I understand, GBG probably was not as strong in.
Right, you got it. Yeah, it just made so much sense. They were strong outside of the US, we were strong inside the US. And so bringing those two companies together made perfect sense. Perfect sense.
Now, I know you've been actively involved in mentoring other females in the business world. Can you give, and it's great that you are, part of now a growing number of female CEOs in this space, and still a way to go, but hopefully moving in that direction further. Can you tell us more about what, advice you would give to your mentees at this stage of the game?
Yeah, definitely. There are a few things. I feel pretty passionate about this. And we do have some mentoring that we do at IDology, but I would just say to any females that are interested in moving up, don't give up. Learn as much as you possibly can, but be who you are. Right? It's okay to be who you are. Don't change who you are in order to get that job. Just go after what you want. Don't take no for an answer. And if you get the opportunity to advance, you need to take that. You may not feel like you're ready for that role, or you may not feel like you're prepared for that role. But honestly, I've never, in my younger days when I was getting these additional opportunities, I never felt prepared. But you know what? You learn and you grow, and you do it fast. So just go after it, and go after what you're looking for. And I'd also say, find a good mentor, somebody who will mentor you, but also give you in positive criticism, let you know things that you can do better, and take that criticism, not personally, don't be offended by that criticism, but take that and use it to grow with. So I could talk for a long time about that, Glenn. It's just something I'm really passionate about. I have a daughter, and so I encourage her as well to always go after her dreams.
One follow-up on something you asked there about your own mentors. Who would you point to that have been particularly instrumental in mentoring you?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, my greatest mentor, and I don't think this will come to a surprise to anyone who knows me, is John Dansu, the previous CEO of IDology. And John has been so tough on me over the years, and that's a good thing, because I think John saw something in me that I didn't quite see in myself early on, and he's given me such great advice over the past 13 years. He's really kind of helped. He has truly helped prepare me for this role that I'm in today, and so I'm so appreciative and eternally grateful to him for all the opportunity that he's provided to me. But he gives me wonderful advice. And I know it may not fit into the term mentor, but I also find a lot of inspiration from my team. I learn from them. They call me on my nonsense if they think I'm not, doing the right thing or making the right decision. And I think as a leader, we need that as leaders. You have to have people that are going to hold you accountable, and sometimes manage you as well. So that doesn't really fit the mentor role, but it's.
No, I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
And my 2 cents on one other thing you mentioned about taking on roles and grabbing the reins when you don't necessarily feel entirely prepared. It's one of the other beauties of starting with a company with 10 people. I mean, maybe you have the title of product manager, but when something needs to be done, there's only so many people to look around and point to. I had a little bit of that same experience myself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Another question that came in via Slido, identity verification, how it's evolving after COVID. We haven't used this term before, but someone's asking about synthetic identities, and that's obviously a direction that existed before COVID, but probably is even a bigger issue now. Yeah, and maybe you can define synthetic identities for those who might not be familiar. We are getting a little bit close on time, so maybe
for sure. So synthetic is just a made-up identity. It's where you take, a lot of times what will happen is they'll take a real social, many times of a social security number of a young person who hasn't quite started to build their credit profile yet, and they'll take that and kind of put attributes around it to build out an identity. And so it's really some pieces of it are real, but combined together, it's not a real identity, it's a fake. But it's able to make its way into the data so that it looks real. Honestly, we still see issues with synthetic, but we haven't seen a huge spike in synthetic. What we are seeing more is account takeover around identity theft. And I think that that's happening a lot with the COVID era right now because of more people having to transact online that normally wouldn't transact online. So going back to the example of the elderly fraud that we're seeing, a lot of elderly people are not used to transacting online to do their banking, and now they are. And so we've got to protect them. We've got to stop that from happening. But unfortunately, fraudsters know that's an area where they can exploit, and we've got to just stay on top of it.
That's a good point. I hadn't really thought that synthetic identities, as I understand it, take a lot longer to germinate. It takes some time to develop them, create that history so they get in the database. So it might not have been as quick of a kind of quick strike opportunity in the COVID world. Like you say, you've got new people signing on, which is a bigger one. Yeah. If people want to find out more about IDology, I guess the website, the best place to do it?
Yeah, sure. So we'd love to talk to you all more about the company. You can find us at IDology.com. It's IDOLOGY.com. Lots of great information on there and research that we've done. And of course, you can contact us there from the website as well.
So Chris, once again, congratulations on your new role. Thanks so much for taking the time, especially on what I'm sure is an extremely busy day.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Great. I hope everybody else enjoyed the opportunity to hear a little bit of Chris's thoughts on identity and privacy as well. Thanks so much and enjoy the rest of the conference.